Invite to the stage from left to right, Gavin Floyd from D Surveys, your friend and mine David Adams from Cavendish, Lisa Alston from Oliver & Co, Wayne Musker from Financial Fortress, and Emily Pickering from Cavendish. So again, I've got questions, but I'm trying to get through them quite quick so you've got time to ask your questions. We all know this stuff, so thank you very much for coming this evening. But if you've got a question, please save it, and I'm going to make sure you've got time to ask it. And if you feel I'm running over time, tell me to shut up and ask the question that you want to ask. I'm really comfortable with that. So let's start though with a dangerous question first. I'm going down the panel here. What is the biggest thing one other profession on this stage does that makes your job harder?
So what I would say is that we're chartered surveyors. We inspect properties for prospective purchasers. My comment would be that some agents should not be telling their client or the prospective purchaser that the surveyor should have returned a report by now, because the surveyor doesn't know until they go to inspect the property what's involved. They don't know if it's a property that hasn't got much going on, or if it's a property that has a considerable amount going on, and there may be further investigations. So some agents need to be careful when they're speaking to prospective purchasers. Some of them are first-time buyers who've never done it before. There could be novices, and really take the pressure off the buyer. Don't say the surveyor should have had the report out by now, because there may be further investigations needed, and those further investigations need to be made so that the prospective purchaser knows how much it might cost to sort the property out, and they may need to renegotiate the price. That's my point.
Brilliant. So David, Gavin's just thrown you under the bus, so now's your chance to throw him under the bus. Which is the thing that another professional on this stage does to make your job harder?
So I'm actually not going to throw shade on you, Gavin. But I am going to throw shade on Lisa. Not Lisa herself, and not Oliver & Co. By the way, Oliver & Co. are absolutely fantastic. We've worked very closely with them for a couple of years now. You guys are amazing. But we deal with a lot of solicitors, and a lot of solicitors don't like speaking to estate agents. And at the end of the day, we're all in this together. We all want the deal to go through, and we want the best outcome for our clients. And what we found is a lot of solicitors don't like to speak to estate agents. And by the way, that does work both ways. A lot of estate agents don't like speaking to solicitors either.
On the basis, it seems to be casting down the line. I think, it's...
I know I'm going to go back.
Oh, excellent. Okay, so Lisa, your chance to blame someone. We're going back up anyway. This is exciting.
Oliver & Co. have got a mindset of we have to work together. All professionals have to work together, and there's no point pitting each other against each other and saying, oh, they told you this and they told you that. So from our perspective, when we've got buyers or sellers, if they're given incorrect expectations from the outset, i.e. timescales, your solicitor should be doing this, this and this, it doesn't help from our, starting point. So, I mean, things like, not yourselves, they don't need, Cavendish don't do this, but I have worked with some estate agents where they'll CC clients into emails to me, and it's very off-putting, and I don't think it helps the relationship. We are supposed to pick up the phone to each other and say, can we have a chat, let's have an update, blah, blah, blah. So I do think it helps when all parties work together rather than one against each other. We will all work for the clients, basically.
Brilliant. Fantastic, Lisa. Wayne, you've dodged the bullet so far, so...
I have.
Who are you going to throw under the bus, Wayne?
Anyone involved in finance and banking, believe me, we normally get it in the neck. But for me, it's not so much any of my colleagues, it's people who lack A, proactivity, and B, client contact. So we're not managing expectations properly, and we're not filling our part of the bargain. So I am sorry, Lisa, a little bit, but pick on solicitors again, not Oliver & Co, pick on solicitors a little, because they'll tend, or in my experience, they'll tend to do things and kind of move on with their life. Right, that's done. But if land registry don't come back, for example, there's never any proactivity around chasing that up. Whereas in my business, we use a system called tasks, which are all dated. So if something's not done within X amount of time, somebody chases that up, and all the while maintaining the contact with the client updating them around timescales, so we're not pitting our against each other. But yeah, working just to make the most for our clients, because as you rightly said, all of us need to get that transaction completed, or none of us are getting paid at the end of the day, and that's all there is to it. So so not so much industry specific, but proactivity and client contact for me.
Brilliant, Wayne, thank you. So, Emily, you get the last laugh. Who on the panel is causing you the most pain?
Unfortunately, it will be solicitors again. I'm sorry, Lisa. Again, not Oliver & Co, but yeah, just generally. I think, certainly from a sales progression perspective, we do get clients approaching us for updates, and a lot of the time it's because they've not heard from their solicitor for a couple of weeks. So we end up doing the digging, trying to find out where the issue is, where the delay's sitting, and often we don't always get the update straight away, and we are dealing with panicking buyers a lot of the time.
So keep hold of the mic, Emily. I mean, we're going to go back up the panel now in terms of, so if you could, let's say, the problem might sometimes be outside the panel and maybe in the hands of the seller. If you could make every seller in Chester to do one thing before putting their home on the market, what would it be?
I think for us, it would certainly be to instruct your conveyancer as soon as your property's gone on the market. We often deal with sales that have been passed into solicitors' hands, and sellers haven't got key bits of paperwork started. They've not even instructed their conveyancer, paid money on account, etc. And yeah, we then often lose valuable weeks where sellers can be completing paperwork, and doesn't often pair well with proactive buyers either, who may have already got their finances in order, etc., etc.
Just hold that thought. So what Emily would like will be, Lisa, you to be instructed right at the start, very beginning. Would you like that?
Yes, really. I think a conversation with the seller first off to discuss anything that they, any extensions, alterations that they've had done to the house, if they got any paperwork there, and if they haven't, and not to approach the local authority to try and do, that's for us to sort of, work out a way to deal with that, but to just have that first contact with the clients to get that, rapport with them and understand their expectations and their timescales and things like that, and just get to know them really.
So let's say that happens now. Is there one other thing that you would like to be able to force sellers to do before they put the property on the market?
See, Oliver & Co have got a really good app system, and our onboarding and our AML checks and everything are really, really high tech, really, really easy to use. They're all, you can do them all on your mobile phone, where a lot of clients will just get the app and they'll start doing it and then they'll just panic and go, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. Instead of just phoning and just saying, I need to have a conversation about this, how do I do this, how do I fill this in, just ask, and we will, we're there to help you, to get you through it. And then as soon as we've got all the onboarding and all of the title deeds and everything that you hold, and from the land registry, we can then issue the contract pack, get it all moved really, really quickly, and send it out to the buyer's solicitors really quickly.
Brilliant. So coming back to you, Wayne, if you could compel a seller to do something before they put the property on market, what would it be?
So first of all, I'm really glad that I didn't get any grief, and I'm surprised David didn't either, so wow. But for me, but for me, it's a failure of what I would call the 6 Ps. So just making sure there's no children in the room. That's prior, preparation, prevents piss poor performance. So get your ducks in a row, understand, like David said, take advice. It's not about selling it for the highest margin. A surveyor, if your house has got issues, if a surveyor is going to cause you trouble down the lane. 6 Ps, get your ducks in order, simple as that.
So with the mentioning of surveying, I'm going to jump straight to Gavin with that then. If there's one thing that you could get a seller to do before they put the property on the market, it would be?
They've got to be realistic about the price they're putting the property on the market at. The surveyor has to value it on the basis of comparable evidence of properties that have been sold within the recent year, maybe within a fairly close radius. And we've got to be able to analyse that information. So we've got a case now, for example, where there's a gentleman knows the price of the property next door, who are friends of his, and he's concerned that that man's going to bring his property value down because it's been on the market for approaching a year and there's no sale. And I've said to the client, well, the property next door is on the market at too high a price. That's why the buyer hasn't been found. So you've got to be realistic and make sure that they're going to put the right, a reasonable level of value on when they put the property on the market.
Brilliant. David?
To be honest, I agree with everyone on this panel, but I would mostly agree with what Emily said, because I can draw from this one from my own experience with regards to instruct your conveyancer before it goes on the market. So I sold my house about 18 months ago, and when we had a sale agreed on the property, I then instructed the solicitor, oh, I made that mistake. And about a week later, this big contract pack arrived, and all the TA forms, fixtures and fittings forms. And my other half, she's very, very organised, and we got home one night, and she said, right, tonight, as soon as the kids have gone to bed, we are sitting down at the kitchen table, and we are going through this. And it took hours, by the way. We actually did it over 2 nights. And if I was on my own, if I didn't have Millie in my life, who's very organised and organises me a lot at home, I would have procrastinated over filling that out for weeks. And a lot of sellers do this. They just, it's so overbearing. It's about this thick. And they think, oh, I'm not filling that out. And that is one of the reasons why sales take so long to complete, because people don't instruct their solicitor or conveyancer before the property goes on the market. Because there's so many, there's so many properties, especially one of the areas we cover in North Wales and Ruthin and Mold. There's so many properties that we sell that aren't even registered.
Brilliant.
All that paperwork.
That's a good answer. Brilliant. So, very quickly down the road, we'll go from the left to right, is very briefly, for you, what is the most common myth homeowners believe that simply isn't true? So a common myth that homeowners believe just isn't true.
I suppose a lot of, not a lot, but some purchasers or vendors will consider that their property is worth a lot more than the property next door. It will depend. I mean, one might have a garage, one may not, but you have to be realistic about the location where you are. Certain locations are going to be more valuable than others, and be realistic and don't sort of over-egg the value of your property.
Brilliant. David?
I would say pricing strategy. So again, from psychology here, if you price a property emotionally, in other words, you price it high to leave room to negotiate, or you price a property based on what you need, how much you paid, etc., etc., then what tends to happen is buyers will then view the property and make offers logically, in other words, using comparables, pound per square foot data. Whereas if you flip that around, and as a seller, you price the property logically, in other words, on the money, what it's worth, or even slightly below to actually drive demand and achieve over the guide price, then what tends to happen is buyers will offer emotionally because of that fear for missing out. So, to sum that up, if you price the property emotionally, people will offer logically and you'll get the worst price. Flip that round and you get the best price.
Brilliant. Lisa?
I would say that just because your house is a freehold house, it's straightforward. Because there's lots of things that can crop up. It could be a second-hand property, somebody that's bought it from new build and then they're trying to sell it and it's only 8 years old, for instance. It might have a management company, it might have restrictions on the title. There's lots of things that can crop up that can delay things. So it's not a 6 to 8 week thing, ordinarily.
So you weren't expecting this, but what's the most obscure legal thing that affects a property that isn't something called the chancery law?
Yeah.
What's that about?
It's if you live within a certain area that's close to a church.
What
But
happens
then
if
it's
you do?
registered on the title. So if it's registered on the title, you put me on the spot now, I can't really remember the year.
Sorry, no, we'll move on. No, I wasn't expecting that question. But what's another good example of an obscure law?
So
An obscure law that people aren't really aware of that will affect their property. You can take the fifth. You can pass if you want.
Yeah, overages and covenants on the properties, that they buy a property and have no idea that they're not allowed to put extensions on it. That's a big one. That you don't know that from 1983 the original builder said you couldn't put an extension on it. And most people have extended their houses and had no idea that there were these restrictions on the title. So, yeah.
And having just bought a house, if you need planning permission, get it before you do the work. as I found someone who sold me a house who hadn't got the planning permission, which was interesting. But anyway, so go on then, Wayne, your myth.
This one's quite straightforward to me, for me rather. Going to your bank's going to get you the best deal, going to get you the fastest solution, because they know me, surely. You know, they see my wages going, they see my bills going out, but it's absolutely not true. So any bank will potentially work with you. It's all about your 6Ps from earlier. So doing it in advance, you know, getting your ducks in order, making sure you've not got any Claras or payment shields on there, making sure you've got no online gambling, you know, at least 3 months in advance.
OnlyFans?
Yeah, definitely not OnlyFans, unless it's coming in. We actually did have an OnlyFans in.
People like my feet.
But yeah, she was actually a bit of a whisperer or something. It was a bit beyond my pay grade, to be honest. She whispered into the microphone, but believe me, she earned some good money from it. Yeah, so we get all sorts these days. Yeah, OnlyFans, we've got gamers. So anybody can have a mortgage, anyone can raise the finance, but it's about getting your ducks in a row. And different lenders will work with different people. So, you know, lender 1 might want professional landlords, lender 2 might want, this is their first ever landlord property. Some may give you X percentage deposits, and your rate is all about the risk that you present. So driving down the amount of risk that you present to your lender, to your bank, will give you the best rates and the best deals. And as a broker, we use computer software. We'll give you a report, and it'll basically say, right, NatWest first, Nationwide second, and it might be that we choose the third because they're the people most suitable for you. But yes, that's what I would say. Don't go to your bank, definitely use a broker, and we'll explain why. Go to your bank as well, then see the deal that we can get. It's always going to be better, unless you happen to have gone to the cheapest bank, which is pretty unlikely.
So go on then, Emily. You deal with this day in, day out sales progressing. What's the biggest myth?
I think, well, David touched on this earlier, but that once a sale is agreed, that's the hard work done. We, as sales progressors, spend hours chasing updates on change, chasing solicitors, chasing brokers, dealing with survey issues. So, yeah, there's definitely a lot more hard work to be done.
So hold on to the mic. If you could identify one thing that goes wrong consistently in the process after sale is subject to completion, what is it?
I think for us it would be once the survey report comes back. We'll often have a bit of a panicking first time buyer who doesn't know what is urgent versus what is maybe normal for a house of that age that they're actually buying, and they often aren't given a lot of context in the report either, so we're kind of having to pick apart the report and try and figure out what's actually going on.
That was a fantastic serve. So Gavin, surveys. So once this happens for you, once the sold subject to contract, what is the thing that then goes wrong? Is it what comes back from the survey, or is it something else?
Very often what can happen is that the survey will normally come back with something. It's, you know, it'll be a further investigation needed, some of them even on modern properties, but there should be no pressure put on the buyer. The buyer is relying on the surveyor, and the surveyor is just doing black and white, saying I think this and that's what I think we need to do. They need to be giving time to the buyer to get the costs together so that they can then make a decision as to whether they can actually afford this property or whether they need to renegotiate. If they have got the survey, then they're in a very strong position. The agent can't keep a secret from the next buyer that there's something wrong with this property. So be sort of a bit sensible about it. The buyer needs to be able to rely on that survey and to follow that advice and get the costs in, and then make a decision as to where to go ahead.
Brilliant. So just out of interest, would you, I mean, no, it's not our system, but getting a survey done as a seller and being aware of all the problems beforehand, you know, a friend of mine, Claire Yates, she's a trainee in the industry, she always describes it as the kimono moment of you buy the person in the kimono and suddenly they open the kimono and look what you've got. And it's kind of, oh my word, I didn't expect that. So surely we'd be interested to actually find that out before you start selling the property.
Well, I mean, Scotland do this, don't they?
Exactly.
And there was a process going through in this country within the last 5 to 10 years where they were thinking about doing the same scheme they've got in Scotland, where the vendor would get the survey on the property, so that would be given to the buyer, so to save the time scale. There are advantages to that, and the only difficulty maybe is that the buyer, how independent is that survey, and you can rely on the surveyors. The surveyor will get a lot of trouble if they're going to be friends with the vendor and try and make the survey not as bad as it should be. So I think it's a good system to have that with the seller, can actually prepare the survey, and we're in the process of it, but it all stopped. So maybe that will be reintroduced in the foreseeable future, which will speed things up.
Brilliant. I sort of wish I'd worn my kimono tonight. David?
I don't think there's enough education in the industry. As in, I don't think sellers are educated enough. I don't think there's enough education out there. There's enough people talking about this. That's one of the main reasons I wrote this book. There's quite a lot of agents who came into the industry back in 2020, 2021. Now, bearing in mind, there was a stamp duty holiday during those years, and everything that came on the market sold pretty much straight away, and everything sold over the asking price. There's a lot of people working in estate agents who started as sales negotiators 4, 5, 6 years ago, but they haven't got the experience in working in, call it a tough market, call it a normal market. I started back in 2007 full time when it was a good market, things were selling really well. But fast forward 6 months and we're in a very different situation, and the property prices were falling. It was a very tough market, and that's where I really cut my teeth and learned a lot about this industry. And there's not enough estate agents that have gone through that market, and that's I'm not saying we're in a market similar to 2008 now, but estate agencies change, the markets change, human behaviours change, and a property doesn't just go on the market and sell. You have to work, you have to find the right buyer, you have to do a lot of tactics to get the right people in front of that property. And I don't think there's enough people talking about it and educating sellers on what's changed, because there's a lot of people who are making decisions based on old beliefs.
Brilliant. So, Lisa, the thing that goes wrong, the thing that breaks the transaction?
I'd have to say after survey as well. Only because, for instance, you've got a first-time buyer who's never looked at a survey report before and saw all the reds, yellow and greens, and saw all the reds and thought, oh my God, what the hell is all of this? I can't buy it, it's going to cost me millions of pounds to get it sorted. Whereas if they actually read through it and actually discuss the survey report with their surveyor and actually find out what it is and then go and look at getting quotes for works that need to be done, it doesn't have to be the end of the world. So it's just about speaking to the clients and saying, look, we don't talk to the clients about the survey reports, we're not surveyors, we're not qualified to do that, but we do always refer them back to the surveyor that did the report to say, have a chat, it might not be as bad as what you think it is, and there is also a section in the surveyor's report for legal advisors' comments, so that you can always forward it towards, but we always refer them back to the surveyor, but that's generally from our point of view most of the time and things. There's lots of reasons why people fall through, but that's one of them.
Brilliant. Wayne?
Down valuations later on is the classic, really. So, the vendor's sold the house, got an offer in principle, surveyor comes out, says there's a massive 1 foot wide crack down the back of the house, it's falling down. It's not worth anything like what you've offered. I mean, that's the most common one later on, and probably quite frustrating. And then for us mortgage advisors, people telling us porcupines. So there's 2 elements to a mortgage process. You've got the decision in principle, so you can have that within hours of contacting us. So I'm on this, I've got this, what can I borrow? And we can tell you, there's your certificate. But then we collect your pay slips, we want to see bank statements. As I said earlier, we're looking for OnlyFans and betting problems and things like that. And it really does go into that level of depth now, because we've got due diligence to do on behalf of the lenders to make sure they're going to get the money back. And then ultimately, you won't get the offer, even though you've had an offer accepted, let's say. The offer doesn't ultimately go through and the sale falls through again, and everybody's had all the different costs. So, it's mortgage specific, that's what I'd say. But after surveys is a big issue for us as well in down valuations.
Brilliant. So hold the mic, and I'm conscious of time, what is the worst advice your profession regularly gives consumers?
I mean, there's a lot of people will promise a lot of things, and we're a long-standing Chester business. Clients are key. We're built on reputation. We have a lot of repeat clients. So I'm swearing again. I'm the only person that comments. Well, no bullshit. I mean, just don't bullshit. Just tell it like it is, and it is what it is. But other people do, and I think that's part of the problem. Yeah.
Lisa, what's the big worst advice your profession regularly gives?
I think really the expectations from the clients, we can get it done by X date, and if you speak to the clients first of all and they say, oh, we're going on holiday in 7 weeks, do you think you can get me moved by then? And then you can't, and then you've got the rest of the chain either breaking their backs trying to get it through, or you've got other people's holiday dates. There's lots of different reasons that you can't just say yes at the outset just to get that client. You have to have that expectation and correct information to give clients at the outset. So yeah.
Brilliant. Gavin?
Can you repeat that?
Yeah, sorry. What is the worst advice your profession regularly? I'm going to say none, but what is the worst advice your profession regularly gives consumers?
There may be some younger surveyors maybe will say, we can turn this round in a week's time. But most surveyors won't be able to do that. They've got to make the investigations, they have to make inquiries of their own. Sometimes that takes a bit of time, they don't come back instantly. So more experienced surveyor will say, listen, once you've got this report, it's going to take a bit of time, you're not going to get it back next week, but we will get it back to you probably within 2 weeks of the inspection. Once you've got it, come back to us and we'll talk it through with you, and we'll explain what we think's going on. And we also, in our case, will give them a list of contractors I've known over the decades who I know do a good job and will do a fair price, and we'll give them a decent quote. So you're helping the buyer as much as you possibly can.
Brilliant. So Emily, the worst advice sales progressors regularly give their consumers?
Well, I try not to do this, but I guess sort of, again, over-promising timescales. We get a lot of questions.
Pretty consistent theme, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's over-promising, expectation management.
Yeah, we get a lot of people, a lot of time buyers approaching us asking, when's my purchase going to go through? And we just don't have the answer to that. We're dealing with multiple parties, multiple moving parts in a transaction. But I think if we can identify where we're up to at each part of the transaction and get everybody talking, then that's the key thing.
Brilliant. David, what do agents? What worst advice do agents give?
So on this, I would say there's too many estate agents telling sellers what they think the seller wants to hear, rather than what they need to hear. They're too focused on their own ego, as in the estate agent's ego, of winning the listing, rather than actually helping that person move house.
Brilliant. Keep the mic, because we're going to do this quick fire now and then open questions to the floor. Is, if you had the power to abolish one part of the home moving process tomorrow, what would it be? That's David.
Stamp duty.
General murmur of approval. Wayne?
Yeah, definitely stamp duty. Yeah, I think it just blocks up so many parts of the market. Downsizing, people trying to aspire. I mean, why do we tax aspiration? I mean, to want a bigger house, it just boggles my brain.
So, Lisa?
Yeah, I'm going to reiterate. I think at the outset when the clients receive the quote from ourselves and then you have the stamp duty on it and they go, oh my God, it's going to cost me tens of thousands of pounds to move house. I'm supposed to be downsizing to a smaller house with no mortgage, and then you've got to pay the stamp duty or the LTT. On top of that, it's just a lot, and it's hard for us to see that they just need to abolish it, or at least have some radical reform of it.
So, Gavin, can you do something other than stamp duty?
Yeah, I think that first-time buyers should be given tax relief. So they should get £5,000 tax relief to cover the cost of the estate, surveyors, the solicitors, moving into a property and maybe getting a bit of basic furniture, because that would generate, the market starts with a first-time buyer. Once they buy, then it goes up the chain. So help the first-time buyers, give them some sort of tax relief, and I think that would be a vote winner for any government.
Brilliant.
We do have the lifetime ISA, by the way, which is similar. So younger people can put £4,000 a year and claim up to £1,000 a year off the government, as long as it's opened up at least 12 months in advance of purchasing your first home. Then that can be quite a good way of incentivising via the tax system. So yeah.
So Emily, you get the final last laugh. You can remove one part of the home moving process. What will it be?
It's quite a big part and it's never going to happen, but surveys. They are the vein of my life.
Great way to make friends with the other members of the panel.
Sorry, they are the vein of my life, I'm afraid.
I'm glad we sat you where we did. Maybe have a chat later. Excellent, that's fantastic. Look, before we go to the next session, this is your chance to ask questions of these genuine experts, brilliant businesses in the area. Does anyone have a question that they'd like to ask? Let me come to you.
What is the best time and worst time to list a property?
So the best, so based on what data tells us and Rightmove tells us, the best time to sell a home is actually in February and March. Homes that are listed in February and March have a higher percentage chance of selling than those that aren't listed in those months. So that is the data answer based on proof. But the more holistic approach I would say is the best time to sell a home is when you need to move, because it's not just, I think quite a lot of people are focused on half of the transaction. You employ an estate agent to sell your home, but in most cases, that person is moving home and they're buying another house as well. Not always the case, but the majority of people buy another home. And there's too many people focusing on one half of the transaction. So something that good estate agents will do, something that we do as well, is that we'll help you negotiate on your onward purchase. So you might sometimes think, oh, I can't afford to sell at the moment because it's not worth I'm not going to get what I need, or taking into account what I paid. But actually, if you can get a good deal on your onward purchase, then let's focus on that, because it's about, basically, in simple terms, it's what you end up in your pocket with at the end of the transaction. And if you can get a big discount on your onward purchase and you take a slight discount on your sale, you can still be up, basically.
Brilliant. Anyone else who have an alternative view? Oh, that's good. Right, great. We come to you.
Yes, first of all, I've gone to the Ruthin conveyancer most of the panelists. I find it very interesting. But there's one professional, there's one professional that's missing, and that's somebody who's creative, like an architect. And I think that many of the things you're talking about would benefit from Cavendish employing somebody who can look at the creative side, which might bring you better sales and maybe more money. And I could think of examples later, but that's just what I want to say as an architect.
An architect's made a suggestion. Take that offline.
And you know what? So we're absolutely over the moon to have so many people in the room here tonight. We are going to run this again, and I think we are going to do one probably over the border in North Wales. We'll probably do it at Theatre Clwyd, because we've got a partnership with them now. We'll probably do it in a few months' time. And I know the next person we'll get on the panel will be an architect. So thank you for that.
Any more questions from the floor? Yes, let's come to you.
Hello. What's the weakest link outside of this panel? Someone that's not here, maybe local authority.
Slightly leading the witness, but yeah, let's go for it. Well, anyone want to take that one? What's the other weakest link?
I mean, land registry. Sorry, Lisa.
You're going to say one.
Yeah, land registry at the moment. Oh my God. You submit something, I'm not joking, it's like a 2-year delay to get title, for example. Basic things. Nobody else is allowed to do this except the government. You have to use them, and they sit there and go, it'll take 2.5 years, as if that's normal. Imagine what I was trying to get over that. So yeah, 100% land registry.
First registrations can take, we are seeing them take about 3 years. You know, it's just when people come to sell their house and they're still not even registering when they bought it. So yeah, another one is local authorities. We deal a lot with in the North Wales area, and Flintshire County Council in particular are really bad for searches. You're looking at 5 weeks sometimes for the results of searches, which causes a massive delay, and there's nothing really we can do about it. We're constantly on the phone chasing, but they just take their time. They can take as long as they want really. So yeah, so that's...
What could be done to speed that process up then?
I think that a lot of, we use a search agent, and they obviously have to make the appointments with the local authorities to go out and get the information that they need. I think most councils like Cheshire West aren't too bad, but I think it's just specific councils that tend to take their time, so I think it's just a shake-up within the local authorities really, that we need this information from them to be able to report to our clients and their lenders, so yeah.
Yeah, for example, so if you go to land registry after it's been submitted and then tell them that you're doing it for a tax purpose, and then all of a sudden you get prioritised and it gets done within 6 weeks. So it can be done, but you have to chase up, and it goes back to the 6 Ps, just be proactive with it. You know, don't just stick it in the pile and hope it's going to work its way through. You've got to fight and be proactive with it. All of us need to, and that's where it goes wrong, I think.
Brilliant. Many of these people are staying around afterwards for further questions if you've got any, but if you give these guys a round of applause, we're going to have fun. Thank you everyone.